On this episode, we drop in on a pedestrian advocates meeting in Portland, Oregon. Then we join the American Volkssport Association in Muncie, Indiana. The Institute of Transportation Engineers has their annual conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. We talk with an advocate in Cincinnati, Ohio. And finally, we look at excessive street widths. Stay tuned. We're in Portland, Oregon, talking with Ellen Vanderslice, who's president of America Walks. What is America Walks?
America Walks is a national coalition of local walking advocacy groups.
You just finished up something you called your Advocates Summer Camp. What was that?
Well, we got a bunch of people together from groups across the country. This was the first time we've ever done anything like this. We're a fairly young organization, but we have groups. There are 15 or 16 groups that belong to our organization across the country, from Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, throughout California, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, New York, Philadelphia. Hope I haven't left anybody out. Chicago. And people from the local groups got together here in Portland to learn from each other and to talk about what it means to be a pedestrian advocate and what a national coalition should do. And to have fun. Sorry.
Yeah, don't forget that part. So what sort of things did people talk about? I mean, what is involved in running a local advocacy group?
Well, a lot of people were here because their groups are fairly new, and they were really looking for experience from the people who've had groups for a longer time. Like the group here in Portland, the Willamette Pedestrian Coalition, was formed in 1991. Walk Boston is, I think, formed in 1990. So there's some of us who've been at this for a while, but a lot of people have just formed in the last year or two or three, and they're facing the problems that a young, growing grassroots organization has of making sure that you have a healthy organization. So and then those of us who've been around it longer, we were looking for inspiration to keep going at it after all this time, when we were sort of beginning to feel a little tired sometimes. So I think it was really valuable for people to get together and to hear what different people are doing. We talked about some of the activities that people do. Some of our organizations do pedestrian actions where people demonstrate and cross the street with placards telling motorists about what the law is, because in most states pedestrians have the right of way at a crosswalk, certainly at a marked crosswalk, but in most states, even at intersections where there isn't a marked crosswalk, there's still a crosswalk. A lot of people don't know that, both pedestrians and motorists. So that's one thing that a lot of the groups do, is to hold a pedestrian action where a number of people cross, maybe 50 people. Atlanta, Georgia just did a wonderful, the group there is called PEDS, and they just did a wonderful demonstration which they called Gone with a Walk, which celebrated the 50th anniversary of the death of Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind. She was killed by a driver when she was crossing the street 50 years ago. And they had a number of people out there with signs and educating motorists and so forth, and they had a really good reception in Georgia.
So where do you go from here? I mean, what's the next step?
Well, we got a lot of good direction for what America Walks should be and what we should be focusing on, certainly in the next year and over the long term. We learned a lot about the kind of support that the local organizations need from a national coalition. And so we'll be working in the next year. We'll be working on raising funds to accomplish some of those things. And we'll be working on producing materials and resources, and also providing the network so that people can keep in touch and that we can really grow this and build this into a bigger movement. We really want to get more advocacy groups started in other communities, and so we'd like to keep that movement going.
We're in Muncie, Indiana, talking with Daryl Pulley, who's the Northwest Regional Director for the American Volkssport Association. What is the American Volkssport Association?
The American Volkssport Association is a individual-run private person. It's a 501c3 organization, Internal Revenue Code. We're dedicated to encouraging people to engage in regular physical activities.
And what sort of physical activities do you promote?
Well, we promote walking. About 95% of our events are walking, and about maybe 2 or 3% is biking, and another 1% about swimming, and then we do cross-country skiing and sometimes rollerblading or roller skating and snowshoeing.
Who organizes these events? How's that work?
Well, there's a national organization that encourages clubs to put on events. We require clubs to go through a sanctioning process. They have to have certain officers in the club, and the club applies to the American Volkssport Association, which is headquarters, which is located in Universal City, for a sanction to put on a walk or an event.
And we've had some interesting stuff going on this week. What's been happening this week?
Oh, we've had our convention. It's 11th biennial convention. So every 2 years we have a convention. This year it's in Muncie. In previous years it's been in Winston-Salem, and the 2 years before that it was in Portland, Oregon. So we've had events in 5 different states, and we've had just a great time. The weather's been beautiful down here. We've had probably an average of 750 walkers walking. We've had 2 swims. We've had a bike along the Cardinal Greenway, which is a new activity for the city of Muncie. It's part of the American. Well, we've been to Houston Woods in Ohio. We're going to go to Marshall, Minnesota. Been to Indianapolis. 2 walks in Indianapolis. We walked the Indianapolis 500, which was on the track. We actually walked on the track.
How was that? Did people like that?
Oh, it was well received. It was over 1,000 people walked on the track, and it was an opportunity. We see this on the news programs, and the Indianapolis 500. We actually got out on the track and walked around the track, and it was wonderful. A little bit of history. You don't realize how big 2.5 miles is on that track, and what it takes to put on that event. And we just had a great time. It was well received by everybody.
If someone wanted to find out if there's a local club in their area or an event going on in their area, do you have a website?
Yes, we do. It's www.ava.org.
How about a phone number?
The phone number, people can call in the national headquarters, a menu-driven phone number. It's 1-800-830-WALK. That's W-A-L-K. And it's self-driven. You can punch in the numbers, and they'll tell you the events that are in your neighborhood over the next month or so.
We're in Las Vegas talking with Rich Romer, who's co-chair of the Local Arrangements Committee for the ITE meeting this week. What is ITE?
ITE stands for the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and this is our 69th annual meeting. And currently we have record attendance at the meeting. Over 2,400 members and have attended, and I understand from also not only in the United States and Canada, but also from 17 other countries.
What is it that the Local Arrangements Committee has been working on so hard for how long now?
Well, actually, it started 7 years ago. 7 years ago, we had 3 members go to Washington, D.C., and we made a presentation to the ITE board, and they selected Las Vegas back in, I believe it was 1992, to be the recipient of the 99 meeting.
Now, when you aren't working on organizing a meeting like this, you also work for Clark County, Nevada. What do you do for them?
I'm the traffic manager for Clark County. I'm the manager of the Traffic Management Division in the Department of Public Works.
People are thinking Clark County, it's Las Vegas, the big city. Las Vegas Boulevard, you have I guess the largest concentration of hotel rooms in the world, is it? Or certainly close to it. Meaning you have a lot of pedestrians. How many pedestrians do you have?
That's a good number, but let's equate it perhaps to some of the major conventions that we have. When we have events such as Comdex and some of the other shows, we hear that we have the number of people that attend those are in the hundreds of thousands. So when you look at the numbers of conventioneers, you can get a sense for the tens of thousands, and actually in total on the strip, probably 100 or so thousand on any day. And some of the intersections during holiday periods actually will handle 100,000 pedestrians in a day, such as the intersection of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana Avenue.
How do you handle that many pedestrians?
Well, that's a good question. You have to look at pedestrians and look at that mode of traffic very, very seriously, as you would any other mode of traffic, and provide facilities that accommodate pedestrians with a comfortable level where they feel that the facilities, the area is pedestrian friendly, and also provide, as we traffic engineers call, a good level of service, so that they have enough space around them to feel comfortable when they're moving and they have enough mobility. Also, you have to look at designing facilities that system-wide provide an acceptable level of service. And you'll see that at the intersection of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana, where the design level of service at that intersection with the overpasses accommodates a system, a consistent level of service throughout the system. The elevators, the escalators, the walkways, the corner areas are all designed to accommodate basically a level of service C, if you want to use a level of service connotation that is used in the highway capacity manual.
And in some intersections, they don't have the overpasses. They've got the crosswalks at the surface. How wide are some of your crosswalks?
Some of the crosswalks are about 30 feet wide, and actually some of them can even be wider. The tremendous number of pedestrians that queue up in the corner area create a platoon that is so wide that to ensure that, one, the vehicles do not encroach into the crosswalk area, and also to ensure that the pedestrians have a wide enough area for that platoon to cross the street when they get the walk signal, we had to make many of the crosswalks very wide. And again, that goes back to to not looking at providing pedestrian facilities with cookie-cutter solutions. It's going back and looking at the system and ensuring that the pedestrian system, especially at signalized intersections, is designed to accommodate a minimal level of service.
The strip's been built up over many decades. Some of the areas you still have sidewalks that are only 6 or 8 feet wide with obstructions in them, trash cans, bus stops. What sort of challenges do you face in trying to get those up to a higher level of pedestrian service?
That's a very good observation, and that is a challenge which I believe we've have met head on, and in a way you can almost see the evolution of how the provision of pedestrian facilities has occurred along the strip. And the older resorts or hotel casinos, typically you'll see the narrower sidewalks and the utilities in those sidewalks, so you have obstructions impeding flow. But what we've done is approached the design of pedestrian facilities not only from a technical standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint. We have ordinances that regulate what we call movable obstructions, such as news racks. Many years ago there were as many as 3,000 news racks along the strip. Now there's approximately 300. And those locations where they're allowed are regulated and located to try to minimize the impact on pedestrian flow. The other thing that we have passed is what we call an obstructive use ordinance. And that's to regulate where, again, another mobile obstruction could occur. And handbillers that are handing out handbills, they're restricted to certain areas. And also other areas where people would set up tables to try to sell things on the sidewalk. And again, that's to ensure that pedestrians have a safe width to utilize, and to try to preserve that level of service so that we can move these pedestrians through those areas. So we're looking at also in the technical side, as I mentioned, a level of service C. And typically that's a design standard that we have adopted. And with each of the mega resorts that come in, they are required to do a pedestrian systems analysis to look at what pedestrian traffic they're going to generate, and then how they're going to mitigate that additional pedestrian traffic with the provision of facilities such as wider sidewalks, wider corner areas, wider crosswalks, or as you have seen along Las Vegas Boulevard, the provision of overhead or grade separated pedestrian facilities. The facilities, for instance, at Las Vegas Boulevard and Flamingo, those are constructed by the private sector. The hotel, the Bellagio Hotel, actually constructed both of those at no cost to the taxpayers. The pedestrian structures down at Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana were a combination of local private funding and congestion management air quality funding, and also state funding. So by partnering and doing that, we're able to provide facilities that were needed really to accommodate the very high number of pedestrians that use that intersection or need to cross that intersection.
There's no sign that Las Vegas is slowing down. There are new hotels still going up, on the Strip and off the Strip. What sort of challenge does that present you for the future?
It creates quite a challenge, because if you would compare the Strip and the population in the hotels to a central business district, you would find that the land intensity and the number of people per acre in that Strip or resort corridor area is actually higher than most central business districts. So you can see these intense uses generate high numbers of pedestrians and vehicles and create quite a challenge. The programs that we have in place, and also some other projects that are in the making as we speak, will help us meet that challenge head on. For example, there's a private monorail that's proposed that will connect, if constructed, would connect this hotel, Las Vegas Hilton, all the way down to the MGM and provide a guideway with various stations so that people could easily park at any one of the hotels along that area and then be able to access all these different areas and areas nearby without ever having to move their vehicle. So that's one way. Also, the provision of additional pedestrian grade separations at the intersection of Las Vegas Boulevard and Spring Mountain. There are plans for that. There are also plans at other locations as properties develop. There are also plans to enhance the environment, the streetscape, make it more pedestrian friendly. Some of the things that are being done through the use of enhancement funds is the relocation of utilities and streetlights. The streetlights are being relocated into the medians to get them out of the sidewalk areas. If you notice, the newer hotels have provided nice landscaped areas, wider sidewalks, have moved the sidewalks in most cases away from the street to provide a buffer between the pedestrian and the vehicular traffic, and also try to minimize the potential for jaywalking. As you know, Las Vegas Boulevard is a very busy roadway and very wide. So we're meeting the challenge by doing many of these things, and we're partnering with the private sector. The hotel, casinos, and gaming industry have been a very willing partner, because they want to make sure that their customers have a good experience here in Las Vegas and have safe ways to move about. And we're also partnering with the state of Nevada, and because a lot of people don't know it, but Las Vegas Boulevard is a state highway. So there's a lot of partnering going on. And also it is realized that the resort corridor area, in this area, is really the heart of the economic engine that drives the state of Nevada. So you're dealing with a lot of interests, a lot of stakeholders who have very important factors to consider or things to consider in this whole process. But it is a challenge, but it is actually quite a fun challenge. And we look forward to continuing to work with our partners in providing the facilities that we think are needed.
We're in Cincinnati talking with Sean Halloran, who's president of Cincinnati Bike Pack. What is Cincinnati Bike Pack?
Bike Pack is the Cincinnati Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. It is the Citizens Advisory Committee formed in 1991 to advise the city on bicycle and pedestrian issues, both proactive, reactive, and everything in between.
What are some of the issues you've been looking at recently?
Well, Bike Pack looks at a lot of issues ongoing. We don't focus on any one. We're just basically a bunch of residents, Cincinnati residents and planners and engineers, just everybody under one roof. Some projects we've worked on recently include getting bike racks put on buses, bike racks on buses. Also, just continuously improving the storm grates in the streets to eliminate those tire catchers. Making sure that there's sidewalks and just general pedestrian bicycle advocacy, really.
So what's the shopping mall that's behind us?
This is the Hyde Park Plaza, which is a 1950s era shopping plaza. For the longest time before that, it was cornfields and baseball diamonds and such. And in the 1950s, of course, they built a shopping plaza here, and a typical strip mall. And as we know, the 50s being the high point of planning and building, it turned out absolutely ugly. And it has your Starbucks and your Barnes & Nobles and your Thriftways and your Old Navy stores and things like that. The shops aren't the problem, but of course the problem with Hyde Park Plaza is that it is an extremely unfriendly and dangerous pedestrian environment in the middle of an otherwise beautiful and very pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods of Hyde Park and Oakley in Cincinnati.
And these neighborhoods are nice for pedestrians, and you have nice sidewalk, sit back from the curb by a green strip so you aren't right next to the cars. You get to the shopping mall here. How do you get from the sidewalk by the street to the stores?
You can't, and that's the problem. The plaza here, they did some renovations about 8 or 9, 10 years ago, but none of them were pedestrian oriented. They were all facades and signage. The arch here was added. The sidewalks here at the plaza, we're standing on a sidewalk now by the side of the street, but to get to the plaza, which is only maybe 50 feet, 60 feet that way, the sidewalk ends. And so you have to, for a pedestrian, you have to get onto the roadway to walk into the plaza. Now, if you're a car, that's fine because there's acres and acres of parking lots here. But for a pedestrian, it's extremely dangerous to go shopping here.
And there's some other places here that were built a little earlier that maybe aren't quite so bad for pedestrians?
Yes. This Hyde Park Plaza is a scar in the neighborhood. Now, surrounding Hyde Park Plaza here is just miles and miles of beautiful, older trolley neighborhoods in every direction, for miles and miles in every direction. Close to here, less than a mile that way, a mile in that direction, is Hyde Park Square, which is just a gem, just an absolutely marvelous example of a 1920s era trolley town center, complete with a square, beautiful facades, absolutely wonderful pedestrian environment. It's just a lovely place to hang out there as a pedestrian, even if you're not shopping. If you look around here, there's nobody hanging out here. You don't hang out here in Hyde Park Plaza. At Hyde Park Square, the beautiful one down the street, That's where you see people walking their dogs, walking their children, getting an ice cream cone and just standing around, meeting their neighbors, that type of thing. That doesn't happen here. That's there.
We're in Las Vegas, Nevada, where there's a lot more to the city than just the strip along Las Vegas Boulevard. If you get out into the neighborhoods, one of the things you notice is how wide the streets are. The arterials are wide because they have so many lanes of traffic. Some of the crosswalks are 150 feet long. Pretty long distance to cross on a light cycle. But even the little side streets in the neighborhoods are wide. The standard here for a residential street is 51 feet. Lane of parking on each side and a lane of traffic moving each direction. Could get by with 15 feet less than that. Pedestrian would have a lot shorter distance to cross, and the traffic might even go a little slower. 51 feet may be a high standard by some definitions, but in terms of what's really needed and what's good for pedestrians, it's not a high standard at all. Standards need to be written with pedestrians in mind and not just vehicles.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.
The last thing is that local advocacy is really the key to making this happen. Grassroots is the place. We talked earlier about how there's walking, there's biking, there's inline skaters. It's like these lines are all blurred. We don't necessarily have the exact model for pedestrian advocacy, but we can each model in our communities what it means to be a bicycle rider, what it means to be a pedestrian. We are the authors of our future. I'm indebted to Charlie for this phrase, but you can all go out there and write the future for walking and biking in America. Don't be afraid to go to a meeting in an aloha shirt or with helmet hair or with muddy shoes, okay? I mean, we go through these gyrations, those of us who use alternative transportation, to appear as though we arrived without ever having been in the outdoors. There is something wrong with this picture. Let us begin to appear as though we have actually experienced our environment getting from A to B.